Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Trevor Hansen always believed he knew his wife. 12 years of marriage should have meant something, should have created that kind of intimacy where you understand each other without words. But that Thursday night, as Alicia sat across from him in the living room of their modern Scottsdale home, Trevor realized he might never have truly known her at all. She wore that serious, distant expression, as if she were about to recite rehearsed lines. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers clasped too tightly, and there was tension in her shoulders that contradicted the forced calm in her voice. "I need to be honest with you," Alicia began, and Trevor felt his stomach tighten. "I don't feel happy in our marriage anymore. I think we've grown in different directions, and I need to start over on my own. I need to find my true self." Trevor blinked, trying to process words that sounded like they'd been pulled straight from a cheap self-help book. "What do you mean by that?" Alicia sighed, as if explaining something obvious. "I mean, I need space. I want to live alone for a while, reconnect with myself." "It's not your fault, Trevor. You're a good husband. But I just don't feel that spark anymore." She looked away as she said it, focusing on a spot on the wall behind him. Trevor recognized that tick. It was what she did when she lied. "Is there someone else?" he asked directly. The hesitation lasted only a fraction of a second. "No," Alicia replied too quickly. "This is just about me. About my emotional needs." But Trevor knew there was something deeply false in that speech. He watched her keep talking about personal growth, but his mind was already scanning the past few months for signs: the extra gym sessions that ran late, the weekend workshops she returned from with no new materials, the phone always face down. Instead of exploding, Trevor did something that surprised even himself. He agreed. "Okay. If that's what you need, we can talk about how to make this work. Let's sleep on it and discuss the details tomorrow, all right?" The instant relief on Alicia's face was the confirmation he needed. She wasn't heartbroken. She was relieved. That night, Trevor didn't sleep a wink. He lay next to Alicia, who slept peacefully, and planned his next moves. As soon as the alarm went off Friday morning, he called the dealership and said he had a family emergency. Alicia left for the gym at 7, and Trevor waited just long enough to be sure she wouldn't come back. Then he started searching the house. He began in the bedroom, the closet, the bathroom. Nothing. It wasn't until he returned to the living room and saw her personal laptop on the desk, unlocked, that things changed. Alicia was always careful with passwords, so this was a rare slip. Trevor sat down and opened her email. He scrolled through recent messages and saw a folder labeled D, Personal. He clicked it, and his world collapsed. The messages between Alicia and Donovan dated back 3 months. At first, they seemed professional, discussions about workouts and fitness techniques, but quickly escalated into something intimate. Trevor read confessions about marital dissatisfaction, compliments that crossed professional boundaries, and then messages making it clear there had been a physical relationship for months. But that wasn't all. There were emails about an investment Donovan was making, $50,000 to help Alicia open a Pilates studio. Documents showed the money had already been deposited into a bank account Trevor didn't know existed, opened solely in her name 3 months earlier. There were conversations with interior designers, discussions about studio location, even a timeline for a grand opening scheduled in 6 months. All of it planned behind his back, funded by another man. But the worst was yet to come. Trevor found messages where Alicia and Donovan openly discussed their separation strategy. "I'll ask for divorce on Thursday," Alicia had written. "I'll say I need to find myself, that it's not his fault. Trevor's too predictable, he'll accept it without making a scene. My lawyer says I have a good chance of keeping the house. Once everything's settled, we can finally go public." Donovan's reply burned, "I can't wait for you to be free from that mediocre life. You deserve to live at the level I can give you, not be stuck with some car salesman." Trevor pulled away from the computer, breath quickening, hands trembling. The humiliation stung more than the betrayal. They were laughing at him, planning their future while he worked hard, thinking he was building something solid. But his anger turned into something cold and calculated. Trevor began taking screenshots meticulously, every incriminating message, every email about the studio, every discussion about divorce strategy. He emailed everything to his personal account and saved it on a flash drive. Then he went to their shared computer and accessed their joint bank accounts. He discovered something even more disturbing. Over the past 3 months, Alicia had made purchases on their joint credit cards totaling nearly $20,000, categorized as personal investments, likely funds diverted to the studio project or meetings with Donovan. She was using marital money to finance her affair and prepare her exit. Embezzlement. At 10 that morning, Trevor was in the office of Marcus Fitzgerald, a divorce attorney. Marcus listened to everything, reviewed the evidence, and nodded gravely. "You've got a solid case. Documented infidelity, fraudulent planning, misappropriation of funds. In Arizona, even though it's a community property state, the judge can consider bad faith when dividing assets." "Was the house bought with your money?" Trevor confirmed. "The $100,000 down payment came from my grandfather's inheritance, and I paid the mortgage alone for the first 5 years before Alicia started contributing minimally." Marcus took notes. "We can argue the property has significant separate character. Let's go to war. Want to do this today?" Trevor didn't hesitate. "Yes. Today." While Marcus worked on the paperwork, Trevor transferred half the balance from their joint accounts into a personal account, completely legal since they were still married and hadn't formally separated. Then he hired a forensic accountant to analyze the records of the secret account and suspicious expenses. By 3 in the afternoon, he had a copy of the official divorce petition and all the evidence organized. He returned home and waited. Alicia arrived at 5:30, dressed in workout clothes, relaxed. "Hey, honey. How was your day?" Trevor placed her laptop on the kitchen counter, opened the folder of emails with Donovan, and watched. The color drained from her face in seconds. The glass she was holding fell to the floor, spilling green liquid everywhere, but neither of them moved. "So," Trevor began, his voice calm but icy, "you want to start over on your own?" He let the question hang, watching Alicia open and close her mouth without forming words. "It's interesting, because according to your messages with Donovan, yes, I read them all, it seems you've already been starting over for 3 months. And the plan was to make me look like a fool while you two laughed at me, right?" Alicia tried to speak, but Trevor raised his hand. "Save yourself the trouble. I already know everything. I know about the studio Donovan's funding with $50,000. I know about the secret account you opened. I know about the $20,000 you diverted from our joint credit cards. And I know exactly what you two think of me, a mediocre car salesman who can't give you the luxurious life you think you deserve." Her expression shifted from shock to panic. "Trevor, I can explain." "No need. I filed for divorce today. I have copies of everything, your conversations with Donovan, emails scheming how to screw me in the asset division, proof of the money you stole. My lawyer says you're walking away with far less than you planned." Trevor walked to the closet and pulled out a suitcase he'd prepared. He dropped it on the floor. "And about the house? Funny how you thought you'd keep it. My lawyer has proof the down payment came entirely from my inheritance and that I paid the mortgage alone for the first 5 years. You barely contributed. The house isn't yours." He stepped toward her. "And your dream studio? I hope Donovan keeps funding it, because you won't see a cent of mine. In fact, you used marital funds for that secret project. Technically, you owe me restitution." Alicia found her trembling voice. "You can't kick me out of my own house." Trevor laughed without humor. "Your house? I strongly suggest you pack that suitcase and go wherever you want, maybe to Donovan's apartment, since you two are so in love? You've got 48 hours to get the rest of your things before I change the locks. And yes, I can legally do that during the divorce process. He took her car keys, the imported SUV. The car stays too. It's in my name because I bought it. You can use Uber until you figure out how to make it on your own, which is exactly what you wanted, right? Alicia was crying now. Please, Trevor, don't do this. It was a mistake, I was confused, we can fix this, but he shook his head. No, Alicia. The problem isn't just that you cheated. It's that you planned it all coldly. You saw me as an obstacle to remove in the most profitable way possible. You laughed at me with your lover. Called me mediocre. So there's nothing to fix. He pointed to the suitcase. 10 minutes to grab more things. After that, I want you gone. Alicia ran upstairs, and Trevor heard drawers slamming open frantically. When she came down 15 minutes later with 2 suitcases and a devastated expression, Trevor held an envelope. One last thing. Here are copies of your messages with Donovan, highlighting the parts where you discuss using the gym's contacts to attract clients for your future studio, something that directly violates the non-compete clause in your contract. I sent a copy to the gym's management. Oh, and I also included the messages about your inappropriate relationship with Donovan, who happens to be one of their VIP clients. That violates the company's professional conduct code. Good luck explaining that. All color vanished from her face. You didn't do that, Trevor shrugged. I did. You wanted to start over on your own? Start over with the consequences of your choices. He opened the door and waited. Alicia walked past him and stopped on the front step. She turned, but Trevor simply closed the door in her face. Outside, Alicia sat on the steps, phone pressed to her ear. She called Donovan, her voice shrill with panic. Donovan, please, I need you. Trevor found everything, he has the messages, he's kicking me out, I have nowhere to go. There was a long pause. When Donovan replied, his voice was distant, calculated. Alicia, look, this is getting way too complicated. I can't get dragged into a messy legal battle. I've got my reputation and my business to think about. Maybe it's best we take a break until things calm down, okay? Alicia felt the ground fall out from under her for the second time that day. What? But you said we'd be together as soon as I left him. Said you'd support me. Donovan grew even colder. I said I'd support you through an amicable separation, not a public divorce war with possible legal fallout for me. Sorry, but I didn't sign up for this. Take care of your life first, then we'll talk. Bye, Alicia. And he hung up. Within hours, Alicia had lost her marriage, her home, her car, and the man she'd risked everything for. She sat on the steps of a house she was being evicted from, with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. In the days that followed, Alicia's life completely fell apart. Monday morning, she was called into the gym's human resources department. The regional manager was there, along with a legal representative, both wearing grim expressions. On the table lay printed copies of her messages with Donovan. Ms. Hanson, the manager began formally, we've been informed you were planning to open a competing business using resources and relationships established during your employment with us. Additionally, there's evidence of an inappropriate relationship with one of our VIP clients, which violates our professional conduct code. Alicia tried to defend herself, but her words came out confused and desperate. By the end of the 20-minute meeting, she was unemployed, not fired for cause, they were too smart for that, but let go due to future incompatibility of interests. Alicia left the building carrying a small box of her personal belongings, feeling the stares of coworkers and clients who'd already heard the rumors. The divorce dragged on for 4 months, but it was brutal for Alicia from the start. Trevor's lawyer presented all the evidence meticulously, the incriminating messages, records of the secret account, proof of the $20,000 diverted, emails discussing fraudulent strategies. The judge, a woman in her 60s known for tolerating no dishonesty, looked at Alicia with clear disapproval during hearings. When the final decision came, the verdict was clear: Alicia would receive only 30% of the couple's net worth, minus the amounts she'd illegally diverted. Trevor would keep the house, and Alicia would have to repay her proportional share of the money invested in the studio that never materialized. She'd also bear her own legal costs. In the end, Alicia walked away from the marriage with roughly $80,000, money that seemed like a lot until she calculated she'd need at least half for a decent apartment, and the rest might last her a year while she looked for work. And finding work proved harder than she'd ever imagined. Scottsdale is small enough for rumors to spread fast, and the story of the personal trainer who had an affair with a wealthy client and was fired for planning a competing business spread through the fitness community like wildfire. She sent resumes to every gym in the area, but responses were either politely negative or non-existent. Former clients who once praised her work stopped replying to her messages. The dream of the Pilates studio was dead. Donovan had completely withdrawn his investment as soon as he saw the legal complications. 6 months after the divorce, Alicia was living in a small, poorly maintained apartment in a less affluent part of Phoenix, working at a neighborhood gym for $12 an hour. She'd lost weight in an unhealthy way, had permanent dark circles under her eyes, and woke some nights with panic attacks. Eventually, realizing she couldn't rebuild her life in a town where her reputation was ruined, Alicia packed what little she had and moved to Tucson, where no one knew her story and where she could truly start over, not in the glamorous way she'd imagined, but in the humble, difficult way her choices had earned her. Trevor, on the other hand, faced his own demons in the months after the confrontation. The first few weeks were the worst: sleepless nights, loss of appetite, a constant feeling of floating through a nightmare. He sold Alicia's SUV and used the money to completely renovate the house, repainting walls, replacing furniture, erasing every visual trace of the life he'd shared with her. It was therapy through physical labor. He also started real therapy, weekly sessions with a psychologist specializing in relational trauma, where he finally processed not just the betrayal, but also the signs he'd ignored. Trevor learned the marriage had been troubled longer than he realized, and while that didn't excuse what Alicia had done, it helped him understand the end was inevitable and necessary. 6 months after the divorce, Trevor was in a completely different emotional place. He'd lost weight healthily, returned to training and taking care of himself. He reconnected with old friends and joined a weekend hiking group in the mountains near Scottsdale. It was on one of those hikes that he met Rachel, a 36-year-old veterinarian who'd gone through a difficult divorce 2 years earlier. They started as friends, talking about their experiences, supporting each other, with no rush. Eventually, that friendship deepened into something more. A year after the divorce, Trevor was in a healthy relationship with Rachel, built on total honesty and open communication. They didn't live together yet, both wanted to take it slow, but they spent most weekends hiking, cooking, simply enjoying each other's company without drama. Trevor also found professional success. He was promoted to general manager at the dealership, with a significant salary increase, and used the extra money for smart investments. He was, in almost every sense, an improved version of himself, more aware, stronger, more whole. It was on a Saturday afternoon, nearly 2 years after the separation, that Trevor saw Alicia for the last time. He was with Rachel at a cafe in downtown Scottsdale, laughing at something silly, their hands intertwined on the table, when he spotted a familiar figure walk in. Alicia looked like a faded version of the woman he'd known, dull hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, cheap clothes, deep under-eye circles no makeup could hide. She ordered the smallest, cheapest coffee on the menu and sat alone at a corner table, staring out the window with a blank expression. Trevor watched for a moment, feeling a distant recognition of how much things had changed. Alicia eventually looked in their direction, and their eyes met. Trevor saw immediate recognition in those brown eyes, followed by something like shame. Alicia stood hesitantly, as if considering approaching. But Trevor simply gave a single, polite but distant nod of acknowledgement, then turned his full attention back to Rachel, who was telling a funny story about a dog she'd treated at the clinic that week. Alicia stood there a few seconds longer, watching the man who'd once been her husband laugh with another woman, living the good life she could have had if she hadn't thrown it all away for an empty fantasy. Then she picked up her coffee and left the cafe without a word, disappearing into the Saturday afternoon crowd. Trevor didn't look back. Not out of cruelty, but because there was genuinely nothing left connecting him to that woman except memories he'd processed and filed away in a distant corner of his mind. Alicia had asked to start over alone, and he'd given her exactly that, the chance to rebuild her life away from him, without his presence or support, fully bearing the consequences of her choices. And now, with the house they'd shared transformed into a completely new home, with a healthy relationship blooming, and with an inner peace he hadn't known he could reach, Trevor finally understood that the greatest gift Alicia had given him, unintentionally, was forcing him to start over too. Only he'd done it with dignity, honesty, and the lasting lesson that some people only reveal who they truly are when they think no one's watching. And when that happens, the only healthy response is to give them exactly what they asked for, in this case, an empty house and a solitary life for reflection, and move forward without looking back. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.